This story was shared with us by a viewer named Marcus. In the summer of 2022, Marcus's grandfather, Arthur, passed away at the age of 84. Arthur had lived a completely isolated life on a massive, decaying farm in rural Ohio, deep within the Blackwood Valleys. For the last 20 years of his life, Arthur had refused to let anyone visit him. No family, no neighbors, not even the mailman. He lived entirely off the grid. When Marcus was tasked with clearing out the old property to prepare it for sale, he expected to find typical old man clutter: dusty furniture, stacks of old newspapers, and rusted farming tools. But instead, he found a house that looked less like a home and more like a fortress. The windows were heavily barred from the inside. Heavy iron deadbolts were installed on almost every interior door. But the strangest thing of all was the guest bathroom, located at the very end of the downstairs hallway. The heavy oak door of the bathroom wasn't just locked, it was reinforced with 3 thick steel chains bolted into the doorframe with heavy-duty padlocks. And scratched deep into the wood right above the doorknob were 4 words in his grandfather's shaky handwriting: "Do not open, UNFED." At first, Marcus thought his grandfather had simply lost his mind in his final years. Dementia, paranoia, it happened to the best of them. But after spending his first night at the farm, Marcus realized Arthur wasn't crazy at all. He was keeping a secret. It was around 11:30 p.m. on Marcus's second night at the property. The house was dead quiet, save for the low hum of the old refrigerator and the wind howling through the Ohio cornfields outside. Marcus was sorting through Arthur's old journals in the living room when he heard it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was a sharp, repetitive sound, like fingernails dragging across a hard surface. Marcus froze, listening intently. The sound was coming down the hallway, from the chained bathroom door. Marcus picked up his flashlight, his heart beating a little faster against his ribs. He walked down the narrow, dimly lit corridor. The floorboards groaned beneath his feet. As he approached the bathroom, the scratching suddenly stopped. He stood right outside the heavy oak door. He shone the flashlight on the rusty chains. Silence filled the hallway. "Is someone in there?" Marcus called out, his voice echoing weakly. No response. He bent down, placing his ear against the cold wood of the door. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, he heard a sound that made the hair on his arms stand up. It was wet, ragged breathing, but it wasn't human. It was too fast, too shallow, like the breathing of a rabid animal. And then, a tiny, childlike voice whispered from the bottom of the door, right against the crack. "Arthur? Arthur, is that you? I'm so hungry." Marcus stumbled backward, dropping his flashlight. It rolled across the floor, its beam cutting through the darkness. The voice didn't sound like a monster, it sounded like a frightened little boy. But Marcus knew his grandfather lived alone. There were no children for miles around. Panic rising in his chest, Marcus grabbed his flashlight and sprinted back to the living room. He frantically tore through his grandfather's old journals, searching for any mention of the guest bathroom. Finally, near the back of a leather-bound diary dated 2004, he found it. The pages were filled with messy, frantic handwriting and strange sketches. The sketches depicted a creature. It was tiny, barely 3 feet tall, with unnaturally long, spindly arms, a swollen, bald head, and massive, pitch-black eyes that took up half its face. Arthur had written, "May 14th. I found it in the woods behind the barn. It looked like a deformed child, shivering in the mud. I brought it inside. That was my mistake. It's not a child, it's an imp, a flesh-eater. It mimics voices to lure you in. Once it tastes your blood, it locks on to your family line. I managed to trap it in the guest bath tonight. God forgive me, I can't kill it. Its skin is like stone. If it gets out, it will follow my bloodline." Marcus's blood ran cold. He stared at the page. "It locks on to your family line," he whispered to himself. Suddenly, the power flickered. The lights in the living room buzzed violently before dying completely, plunging the entire farmhouse into pitch-black darkness. In the absolute dark, a massive thud echoed from the end of the hallway. Then another, Thud. The thing inside the bathroom was no longer whispering, it was throwing its weight against the door. Marcus could hear the heavy steel chains rattling violently, metal grinding against metal. Crack! The sound of wood splintering echoed through the house. The creature was breaking the doorframe. Marcus's survival instinct kicked in. He didn't care about his grandfather's journals anymore. He just needed to get to his truck and drive away. He turned on his flashlight and ran toward the front door. He grabbed the handle and twisted it. It wouldn't budge. He remembered the heavy deadbolts his grandfather had installed. They were locked from the inside, requiring a physical key. Marcus frantically checked his pockets. No keys. They were back on the kitchen counter. Behind him, from the dark hallway, came a loud metallic snap. One of the chains had broken. Then, the childlike voice echoed through the house again, louder this time, but now it didn't sound like a little boy anymore. The pitch shifted, melting into a perfect, horrific imitation of Marcus's own deceased grandfather. "Marcus," the voice called out from the dark corridor, raspy and hollow. "Marcus, why are you trying to leave? Come unlock the door. Grandfather needs your help." Marcus turned his flashlight toward the hallway. At the very end, the bathroom door was slightly ajar, hanging off its broken hinges. Two long, gray, multi-jointed fingers were gripping the edge of the door, slowly pushing it open. And from the darkness of the bathroom floor, two glowing, milky white eyes locked directly onto Marcus. Marcus's breath hitched in his throat. He stood frozen at the end of the living room, his flashlight beam trembling violently as it illuminated the end of the hallway. The heavy oak door creaked open further. The two glowing, milky white eyes on the bathroom floor began to move. The creature didn't walk out on two legs. It crawled. It dragged its skeletal gray torso along the hardwood floor, its multi-jointed limbs snapping and popping with every movement, like breaking dry twigs. It looked exactly like the sketch in the journal, but worse. Its skin was translucent, showing thin black veins pulsating beneath the surface. It had no nose, just two slits for nostrils, and a jaw that unhinged slightly as it breathed. "Marcus," it whispered again, using his grandfather's raspy, hollow voice. "Don't be afraid. Arthur was weak, but your blood smells so much sweeter." The creature suddenly lunged forward with impossible speed, skittering across the floor like a massive, deformed spider. Marcus snapped out of his trance. He screamed, dropping the flashlight, and bolted toward the kitchen. He didn't have time to look for the keys on the counter. The creature was right behind him. He could hear its sharp, stone-like claws tearing into the linoleum floor of the kitchen. Marcus threw his weight against the heavy wooden kitchen island, shoving it backward with all his strength. It slid across the floor with a loud screech, blocking the narrow kitchen entrance just as the creature reached it. Slam! The entity crashed into the wooden barrier. The impact was so violent that the heavy island shifted an inch. Marcus scrambled backward, his eyes scanning the dark kitchen. The only light came from the moon shining through the small window above the sink. He looked at the window. It was small, but he could fit if he broke the glass. Before he could move, a pale gray hand with elongated fingers reached over the top of the kitchen island. The fingers clawed blindly at the air, trying to reach Marcus. Then the creature's face appeared over the edge. Its mouth split open from ear to ear, revealing rows of small, needle-sharp black teeth. It didn't have vocal cords of its own, so when it couldn't mimic a voice, it let out a horrific, high-pitched static shriek, a sound that sounded like a broken radio frequency mixed with a human scream. Marcus grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from the stove. As the creature tried to squeeze its body over the island, Marcus swung the skillet with both hands. Crack! He hit the creature squarely on its bald, swollen head. The impact felt like hitting solid concrete. The skillet vibrated painfully in Marcus's hands, but it worked. The creature let out a choked hiss and fell back onto the kitchen floor on the other side of the barrier.
Marcus didn't waste a second. He turned to the window above the sink, smashed the glass with the handle of the skillet, and frantically knocked away the broken shards. He climbed onto the counter, pushing himself through the narrow frame. The jagged glass sliced into his jacket and his shoulder, but he ignored the pain. He tumbled out of the window, landing hard on the muddy ground outside the farmhouse. The cold night air hit his face. Rain had started to fall, turning the Ohio dirt into a slippery mess. Marcus scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward his pickup truck parked in the driveway. He reached into his pocket, and his heart dropped. No keys. He had left his truck keys on the kitchen counter next to the house keys. Panic engulfed him. He looked back at the farmhouse. Through the broken kitchen window, he saw the creature climbing out. It slid through the small opening effortlessly, its bones bending at unnatural angles to fit through the tight space. It landed on the mud, its pale skin glistening under the moonlight. It turned its large, eyeless head toward the driveway. It knew exactly where Marcus was. Marcus looked around wildly. The old barn was about 50 yards away. It was his only cover. He sprinted through the muddy cornfield, his boots slipping, gasping for air as the heavy rain blinded him.
Marcus burst into the dark barn, throwing the heavy wooden sliding door shut and sliding a rusted iron bar into place. The barn smelled of old hay, gasoline, and rust. He backed away from the door, his chest heaving. Seconds later, a heavy impact hit the outside of the sliding door. Bang! The wooden planks groaned. The creature was throwing itself against it. Marcus! A new voice echoed from outside the door. Marcus's blood turned to ice. It wasn't his grandfather's voice anymore. It was his own voice. Marcus, open the door. It hurts out here. Let me in. The entity was mimicking Marcus's own voice perfectly, a flawless digital copy of his own throat. Hearing his own voice beg from the darkness outside was the most terrifying thing Marcus had ever experienced. Realizing the wooden door wouldn't hold it for long, Marcus frantically searched the barn for a weapon. His eyes landed on a rusted red jerry can in the corner. Gasoline. Arthur's old journal entry flashed in his mind. Its skin is like stone. I can't kill it. Maybe weapons couldn't pierce its skin, but fire could destroy it. Marcus unscrewed the cap of the jerry can and began dousing the dry hay and wooden pillars near the entrance with gasoline. He poured the entire can, his hands shaking so much he spilled some on his boots. Crack! The wooden bar on the sliding door snapped. The door flew open and the creature slid into the barn, its milky eyes locking onto Marcus. It bared its needle-like teeth, preparing to lunge. Marcus pulled a box of matches from his pocket, something he always carried. He struck a match. The small yellow flame flickered in the dark barn. Go back to hell, Marcus whispered. He dropped the burning match onto the gasoline-soaked hay.
Whoosh! A wall of bright orange fire exploded between Marcus and the creature. The dry hay caught instantly, and within seconds the entire front of the barn was engulfed in roaring flames. The creature let out a sound that Marcus would never forget, a deafening, multi-layered scream of pure agony. The fire caught his translucent skin, and the black veins beneath began to boil and burst. It thrashed violently in the flames, trying to run towards Marcus, but the falling, burning wooden rafters pinned it to the floor. Marcus ran to the back exit of the barn, kicked open the small door, and stumbled out into the pouring rain. He collapsed onto the wet grass, watching the old barn burn to the ground. The heavy rain kept the fire from spreading to the woods, but the barn was completely destroyed. The horrific screams from inside the flames slowly died down until there was nothing left but the crackling of burning wood. Marcus stayed at the neighbor's house that night and left Ohio the very next morning. He never went back to Blackwood Farm. He sold the land to a commercial logging company for a cheap price just to get rid of it. For months, Marcus thought it was over. He thought the fire had ended the bloodline curse. Until last week. Marcus now lives in a modern apartment in Chicago. 3 nights ago, he was washing his face in his bathroom around midnight. The lights flickered and went out. Marcus froze in the dark bathroom, his heart hammering against his ribs as a familiar cold knot formed in his stomach. He slowly reached out, his hand trembling as he felt for the bathroom door handle to get out. But before his fingers could touch the metal, he heard a sound from the other side of the door. From his dark hallway, a soft, familiar scratching sound against the wood. And then his own voice whispered through the keyhole from the outside. Marcus, I'm so hungry.